My name is Christian Mehta, and I'm so pleased to be able to host this session. Yesterday, some of you may have seen the inclusion plenary with the philanthropists, where I said that they have the last word on this topic that we've really woven through this year's Congress. And I lied because the next generation really has the last word. And so I'm so pleased that we're doing this topic here at Congress. And it was really a part of the 12-part series that we held at AFP in Toronto and in Ottawa over the course of the past 2 years. And we had a really great turnout in Ottawa around next generation philanthropy, and this is in some ways inspired by that conference which Sam Banks chaired in Ottawa. So we're really pleased that she's joining us here again, as she's now living in Toronto and working here. So that's great. So first and foremost, I want to also acknowledge our wonderful sponsor today. Thank you very much to GiveBridge for their kindness and generosity in making this stream, this session in particular, happen. It's very special. And I also want to just do a couple of quick housekeeping items. You'll see some yellow forms circulating around. Those are the evaluation forms. It's very important that you fill those out at the end of the session so that we can get the feedback to our presenters here and also use that to inform future sessions. And so this session is until 12 o'clock, and it's a panel led by Ken Wyman, and I'm pleased to introduce Ken to you. He is has been teaching in the postgraduate certificate program at Humber College for many years, and his research sabbatical period explored advocacy in charities. Ken has been called one of the world's best fundraisers. I agree. He, as a popular trainer and consultant, has spoken in workshops across Canada and the US, from Cuba to the Arctic Circle, and in Sweden, Austria, England, and Holland. For more than 35 years, Ken has invented and adapted techniques to help nonprofit groups learn the secrets of growth. And as a consultant, he has helped hundreds of organizations raise millions of dollars. His clients range from grassroots groups with no staff or office to giant multinationals in almost every field. Ken has written and contributed to 8 books on fundraising, most recently including The Excellence in Fundraising in Canada. And that's available, actually, or was available at the book table here. He also won the first ever Fundraising Executive of the Year from the Association of Fundraising Professionals Greater Toronto Chapter. So he is our moderator, and without further ado, Ken Wyman.
So before I introduce our panelists, a couple of words of warning. If you're tired because you were up late last night partying, you went to the Walrus session, we're going to have to wake you up because this is going to be a very interactive session. If you want to just sit back and hear gurus give you the answers, Next Gen doesn't do that. We are into uncharted territory, like fresh tracks in the snow. We don't have the answers. We're going to sort it out. I'm here as the token boomer because, of course, boomers never get old. We always think of ourselves as the next generation. So I hope that this session does not boomerang on you, and that will be the last of the boomerang jokes that we're going to make. None of us came up with the term boomerang, so we're stuck with it for this panel, but we will mostly just talk about next gen. I'll introduce our 3 panelists. Samantha Banks is the Director of Operations and Development at The House. Has just moved back to Toronto after working for 3 years at the Jewish Federation of Ottawa as Director of Emerging Generation. Sam also interned in the Stephen Leacock Foundation, chaired their Next Generation Philanthropy Forum for Diversity at the AFP series in Ottawa, and I'm proud to say, a graduate of Humber College. She also, in her undergraduate years, where she has a BFA in dance, was president of an international youth movement that worked on campuses. So she comes well equipped to this panel. Aarti Sethi is the Development Officer Community Initiatives at Trillium Health Partners Foundation, and she has headed South Asian tribute marketing for the Canadian Cancer Society, raised close to $850,000 at the sold-out Trillium Health Partners Foundation Diwali Gala. We will hear a little bit more about that, and we have a dance theme on the panel because she also teaches Bollywood dance. If we run out of questions, we'll just switch the whole panel over and everybody but me will dance. Sam has the music queued up. Leen Zaibak is the co-founder and leader of Jasur, which means bridge, which helps Syrian youth continue their education. They've got 800 Syrian refugee children in an education program. They've got $10 million in scholarships through the Clinton Global Initiative. And prior to taking on this challenge, she worked for the Ontario government, including as a policy advisor for the Ministry of Children and Youth Services. She is also the 2014-15 Civic Action Diverse City Fellow, or is that Diversity Fellow? We are going to look at our questions. If you want to follow along, here are everybody's Twitter handles, and if you want to tweet during the day, we're using hashtag AFP Congress and hashtag BoomerangGen. Well, our official instructions for this was to talk about how the next generation as both donors and fundraisers, so we're going to look at staff, volunteer, and money-giving roles, incorporating technologies, networking, leveraging partners, the future of charitable giving. And we're going to try and deal with that in 10 questions. Well, we have 10 questions. You have more, and we're going to get very involved in that. I should warn you that as this is an interactive session, I will be coming around with a microphone. This is being videotaped and will be put up on the webcam or the website for the AFP. So if you have something that you don't want the world to know, unfortunately, Las Vegas rules will not apply to this session. What says in this room will go up on the internet. So here are the questions that we're looking at. First of all, we're going to try and come up with a definition. What the heck is the next generation? Anyway, we'll look at diversity, money, donor retention, information junkies, events, volunteers, staffing roles, social media, and new technology, and that's just the questions that we prepped for. We have a variety of slides that we will throw up as we go, but it's not going to be a structured presentation. If people want the slides, we'll be happy to make them available through SlideShare, but it's not that kind of session. So let's just go back to question number one and throw it out to the panel. What the heck are we talking about? Who are these boomerang generations?
Hello, everyone. Hear me good? Wonderful. So just going to map out who we're talking about. We all have lots of experience, but for this session in particular, we're talking about the 22 to 35 demographic, and as I like to call, post-grad, pre-kids. Because we find once you have children, you get into a bit of a different stage of life, and your needs and wants are a little bit different.
So how many people here will admit that they're over 35? Okay. And how many people here will admit to being under 25? Okay. And how many are post-grad, pre-kid? Okay. I'm still in that category as well. So we know what we're talking about, a fairly narrow demographic, but that's our terminology. We know that this is pretty flexible. There are people who are up to 39 and 3/2 who will still try and be next gen, and there are some people who will try and sneak in under 25. Our three panelists come from very diverse backgrounds. It's not, I begin to feel like we're doing it, and they walked into a bar joke. Is this typical of next gen? Is this kind of diversity a model?
If I can step forward, I do believe that it is indicative of next generation. If you look at the three of us here from very diverse backgrounds, all working within different charities, different organizations with all diverse causes as well. If you look at projections looking forward, or you look at even current stats within our community, approximately 16.2% of our current population is visible minority. and look forward to 2031, 30% of our total population, 30% will be visible minority. And 71% of that, 71% of our metropolitan communities, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, will be diverse communities. So if we're looking forward, that is next generation, that is who we're talking to, but it's also a very broad range of people, a very broad range of backgrounds that we're going to be engaging with.
And it's not just the individual diversity, it's the interconnections of having grown up in schools where everybody was friends with everybody else. And there are very few of the old-fashioned ghettos where you didn't know somebody from another religion, another cultural background. So it's entirely appropriate to have a Jewish Bollywood dance, and everybody will have fun together. It's going to mean that it's a mixed-up generation, and we'll take advantage of that as we do our fundraising. Question number 3. Money. Is the next generation going to give it in immediate future, or are we talking about short-term pain for long-term gain, like planned giving programs? We invest now and benefit down the road.
Yeah, I think I think that you have to think about next gen as fostering a relationship over time. So our earning potential at this stage in our lives is not so big. So we won't be able to give huge amounts yet. But the key to activating the next gen is for organizations to understand that they're building towards future giving. In the Millennial Impact Report 2013, 52% of respondents said they would be interested in monthly giving. And I think this is a great option for organizations to tap into. Instead of expecting a $120 one-time payment, the next gen are ready to give $10 a month. So that's, I think, a great resource that organizations can tap into. Don't expect that next gen aren't going to give anything right now. They're able to give $10, $20, $30 a month. So use that and harness it, and it will increase over time.
You're not going to get rich from us. There's no way. We have mortgages and debt, school debt, and it's just not going to happen. But we are the future of your organizations, and cultivating us, bringing us into leadership roles is going to totally shift the vibe of where your organization is going in the future. We also, like you said, we give to lots of different places, and we give because our friends ask us. So even though we might be a small monthly donor for you guys, or we might just give $20 to a friend because they did a walk, run, jump, or hula hoop party, those gifts will turn into bigger gifts. And we encourage you to keep on asking us and following up with us a couple times a year, because we also have attention spans this big. No many asks is never enough.
And give feedback on where our money is going, even if it's $10. Treat us like we're giving $1 million. It should be the same feedback, and then we're more inclined to give more in the future.
Now, while you may not make a lot of money in the immediate future from them, for some organizations, the youth demographic is crucial to your fundraising. So this is where we start getting into audience participation. We know that many organizations have done surveys and found that the average age of your donor is 75, and your youth wing is anybody under 60. I'd be interested in hearing from anybody who has found a significant portion of your donors are next gen 25s to 35s, or who has found that your donors are definitely in the older groups. So let's hear from you.
Just one general comment. Okay. I find that the next gen that I communicate with, they can't help personally, but they can help at the corporate level. So they engage from an employee engagement perspective and really kind of manage up that way. And that's where I found a lot of success in those programs. So.
And what organization are you with?
OCAD University.
Good.
I think one important thing to remember is that we are also at the point of our lives where we may not be necessarily committed to one particular cause or one particular organization. So from an organizational perspective, now's the time to open that conversation, to start that dialogue, and to engage with the next generation who pipeline down the road could potentially be your major donors. But right now we're in the point where, like Sam said, we are supporting somebody who's running. We are supporting an interesting ad campaign that we saw. There is somebody who asked us at the mall, and that may be the reason that we're supporting right now, but that is not necessarily the same reason that we're going to be supporting down the road. So just remember that now may not be immediate financial return, but it's definitely the time to be opening that dialogue with the next generation.
Fostering that relationship.
Absolutely.
Ken brought up a wonderful point. Who even tracks ages in their database?
Okay, and what are you finding in your database? What are you finding on ages? So, no, you want the microphone.
I'm on the microphone. We're finding that people who are under 30 are more likely to give their ages than people over 30.
An organization?
Huntington Society of Canada.
Who else is tracking ages, and what are you finding? I saw hands go up. There we go.
I'm with Health Sciences and Earth Foundation in Sudbury. It's a hospital foundation. So when we track ages, we see that most of our donors are older, probably because they are more apt to need the services of a hospital. But we find that the younger generation are giving us their email addresses. So we're able to communicate with them in a different way.
A wonderful tip, if you're doing a young adult event, I always ask for their birth dates. And I always say it's for our birthday campaign, so you're going to get a birthday card in the mail, and that's a wonderful way to start collecting ages.
Well done. So let's talk about how Next Generation gives to a whole variety of causes. This is good news. If you got their friends, you'll get them too. They connect with each other. But then we end up with people who've made a one-time donation because somebody was in a hula hoop contest or doing a run, and next year they're on to whatever the next big thing is. How are we going to hold on to these one-time donors and not have a very expensive churn of short-term donors when we need people who will become monthly contributors and continue, if we're going to invest now, that 20 years from now they will still be giving to Huntington or a hospital in Sudbury or OCADU?
I think a huge part of it is, like we said, we're starting the conversation. We're opening that dialogue. We're communicating with social media, which essentially is next generation mother tongue. But that's, again, we're opening that dialogue. What's going to keep them in is how we maintain the conversation. So in addition to the conversation, what are we saying? What's the content that we are giving them? What are we saying that's relevant to them? And if it is a walk, run, hula hoop event, gala event, we're also talking about guest experience. So if this year I'm coming out because you asked me to be on your team, what is it going to take for me to start my own team next year? If I come out to a gala this year, how is it going to be relevant to me, or how am I going to have a good enough time for me to start my own event or come again on my own next year, even if I came as a guest this year? So we're talking about guest experience, we're talking about content and conversation, and we're talking about relevance.
What do I mean when I do this? What campaign? Amazing. They are the masters of engaging next gen. And why it's worked so well and why they have so many followers is because you donate to your friend, and then you want to grow some upper lip smorgasbord up here next year. And then you get invited to their gala in Toronto at Government at the end of the campaign to celebrate. They have the best pregame and they have the best follow-up, and we can learn a lot from their campaign.
It's amazing how many women get involved in Movember.
Well, because they also have a name. They're the Mo Sisters, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So we've already become relevant. We've already become part of that, something that we wouldn't necessarily have any part of otherwise. I think another huge shout out goes to the ROM. The ROM has started Friday Night Live, and dancing, drinks, food, like what else can you ask for in terms of engaging with the next generation? So now people who maybe haven't gone to the ROM since a school trip, back in the day, are now having a reason to go there regularly and now are suddenly engaged in the ROM's weekly activities.
And they're ready to line up for an hour in the cold to get in. And the ROM has really taken advantage of the next generation, and even given passes, $150 for Friday Night Live, just to skip the line, go in, have fun with your friends. And then they have the Young Patron Circle, which is between the FNL crowd and future philanthropists, where for as little as $50 a month, they'll hold behind-the-scene talks by curators. You have previews to exhibits that are coming. You're networking. The biggest thing with the Next Gen is we really like networking. we're focused on building our career. So any opportunity to network and to build our skills, we love. So incorporate that into Next Gen events.
I would say another tip would be, when's the last time you had maybe people in your space, or you really have a very cool agency that you support? Host an event in that space for your next geners, or do a cross-generational event. Bring in the parents, bring in the next geners, and show them what you're made of. Yeah, it's an incredible opportunity that's already paid for, and it brings people full circle back into your space.
So it's not just a stuffy old museum full of dinosaurs that can have parties. You can use all kinds of strange spaces, and I'll be interested in hearing, again, examples from the floor of how you've been able to help the Next Gen party, possibly in spaces that weren't really designed for partying, but as an opportunity to network. And in addition to looking for the next job, what's the other motivator that young Next Gen people are looking for? There's two things that you told me on the phone that they wanted to find at that party. One was a job, and the other?
Partner.
They're special someone.
They're special someone. We're looking at people who are looking to hook up and permanently in a loving, deep, bonded way, or not. And many organizations, and this has been true over the generations, have found lifelong relationships have been made because lifelong relationships have been made. One of the oldest religious organizations on campus in Canada is the Student Christian Movement, SCM, also referred to as the Society for Courtship and Marriage, because so many young couples met on campus, enjoyed the spirit of turning over tables, and continue to be old friends 25, 50 years later. What are your experiences in getting the Next Gen to stay connected to your organization? Now, I'm looking for volunteers to take the microphone. Oh, a deafening silence comes over. No, not me. All right, we'll go on to info junkies, and I'm going to keep coming around with this microphone. So Next Gen wants to engage, not just write checks. It's not enough to say, yeah, I made a contribution, here's my credit card. They are not the busy generation that has no time. They don't have the kids that they have to rush home to. They want to connect. They want to have a relationship with the organization. So what can we do to provide the information that they want? What can we do to make sure that it's accessible for them? The Millennial Impact Research Report 2013, you can find it at millennialimpact.com. And the 2014 research report is just coming out now. You want to talk to this?
Yeah, I think that it's important that the Next Gen wants to connect with the beneficiary. They want to see the impact that they're donating their dollars, is making. At Jussur, we really try and create that that instant connection to the beneficiary. So even in our newsletters, we have our scholarship recipients doing a short video where the donor can instantly see the impact that their money is making or that their future money donation can have. We have created a blog where recipients, beneficiaries are talking about their experiences at university through the scholarship outside the university. So the donor is able to follow that beneficiary past, the scholarship. We have four of our students from one of our scholarship programs in the States have graduated and gone on to Goldman Sachs in New York. And they're still communicating with our donors. It doesn't end when the opportunity ends. So really showcase the beneficiaries. I'm noticing a trend in galas now. Instead of having the president of the company speak, it's the beneficiary speaking. And that's personally much more effective, I feel, for the donor and connecting with them.
And I think, and I can speak to that, having planned a gala myself. Guests, if they don't want to hear from the president of the hospital, they don't want to hear from the CEO of the foundation, they don't want to hear necessarily from a doctor, they want to hear from a patient. Mm-hmm. They want to know that the money that they're spending to be there is going to the cause and how it's helping people. And in addition to that, I think we are at the point where technology, information, we're in one of the most savviest generations, I think, we've ever been in, and all of the information is available to you at the tip of your fingers. So I think maintaining transparency and a really high level of ethics is incredibly important. We are everyone has a BA now, at the very minimum. So business acumen and tech savviness, if that's a word, everyone has that at the very least. So maintaining transparency, maintaining your ethics, keeping your cost to raise a dollar at its minimum, I think all of those things are important, and Next Generation want to know that. They want to know that the fundraising or the donation dollars that they're giving, this is not them buying, they'll still spend $600 on an iPhone, that's no problem. And it doesn't matter how much the CEO of iPhone or Apple is making, but they want to know that their donation dollars are going directly to the cause.
And how do you do it? How are you going to shift the culture of your organization? So A, you need a next gen sitting on your board of directors, 100%. And if you can't get them a seat, create a task force or a subcommittee and get them to recruit a few friends. And then you have your little team and you can report to the chair of membership or whatever. It's really important. Another thing, leadership circles. That's a little bit of a passé term. Just next gen committees. Position it so that they can do their own event. It can be low cost, low barrier. Do it in one of your top donors' homes. Let them cater it. Just tell all the next geners to invite their friends. Have someone from the organization speak, a patient, not your CEO. They're boring usually, no offense. And it will be an amazing environment, and you get all the emails, you get all the contact information, and that's where I would start your next gen division.
And also it's interesting that the next gen aren't just researching before giving their money, they're actually volunteering. So they'll volunteer before donating to an organization to get a better sense of the work the organization is doing. So they might be donating their time today, but hopefully donating their money tomorrow. So volunteers, next gen volunteers are more likely to give when they volunteer with the organization because they've established that emotional connection to the organization and they want to see it succeed. So take advantage of that. Make sure that there are opportunities for next gen to volunteer, to see your organization, to really get their hands dirty. And again, that's going back to fostering the relationship over time.
So then you might ask, how the heck do we get next geners in our doors? An idea? Have a revolving mentorship breakfast. Each of your CEOs and top leadership and whatever, you have different pop-up stations, and every 5 minutes a next gener could rotate. You have amazing people and professionals working in your office. Target an event specific to the stage of life they're in, 22 to 35, looking for furthering their career or that special someone. Another idea? No, that's enough.
Let me just pick up on one item that's on this slide here. How many of you are set up for monthly contributions? Anybody can contribute. I'm glad to see it's over half the room. I'm sorry to see it's not everybody. 52% of the people who responded to the survey had said we're interested in monthly giving. Somebody who says, I can't afford to give you $100, that's a lot of money, except for an iPad or an iPhone, will happily sign up for $10 a month, which is 20% more than what they wouldn't sign up in the first place. And that donor retention is very high. People who sign up for monthly giving continue to give for, on average, about 5 years. So don't start with a one-time gift. Try and get people involved in a meaningful way at a very early stage, and then increase the $10 gift to the $15 gift. The UK and Canada are years ahead of the United States on this one, where monthly giving is only now beginning to catch on. Some organizations like Amnesty International, which has a very youth-oriented donor base, will have about 1/3 to 40% of their donors signed up on monthly giving, but they're giving 60, 70, and sometimes 80% of the money. Some of them are giving that $10 or $15 or $25 a month, although I know they have at least one donor who signed on for $1,000 a month. Loves having it taken out of the credit card because it gets points. So one of the simplest things that you can do is set yourself up for monthly giving fairly quickly. And if you don't have the technology on your own website, Canada Helps will be happy to set that up for you at a moderate fee. Sam?
But use monthly giving as an incentive program. If you want to become a monthly donor for us, becoming one, you can get invited to our gala. There'll be a special Next Gen table, free tickets. You'll be invited to the Shangri-La's private screening room, 40 people for this cool movie. Use what's out there, because you have amazing resources at, I don't know, there's TIFF events, you don't have, like, find things that Next Gen people love and align with them so that you can use these programs as incentives for them to become monthly donors for your organization.
So we're now getting into talking about special events, and it's not your mama's gala anymore. I'm sorry, Marky, gala. I have to pronounce it as the English would. We are looking at a whole different type of event. Let's talk about what they want, when we do events only for them, and then we'll have the other problem. What do you do when you have an event that's multi-generational and the boomers don't want to listen to the loud music and the next gen doesn't want to listen to Celine Dion? So let's talk about events.
I think one cool event I saw, I think it was a year ago, Journalists for Human Rights. They did their dinner gala, but they also then had an after party where the Next Gen attended. They didn't have to go to the dinner. It was a lower cost. And then as well, those that had gone to the dinner could linger and still participate. So it wasn't excluding either group. Each one could come to either event, but I thought it was a really creative way of catering to the Next Gen and catering to everyone, really.
I personally can speak to the Trillium Diwali Gala, which has been going on for the last 13 years, and in the last 13 years has raised over $7 million. It's an incredibly successful event, and I'm lucky to be on board and be sort of taking care of this gala for the last couple of years. And now my job is to make it relevant to future communities or to future generations. So the particular demographic that's been running the event and making it as successful as it is, how do I continue that for them while still making it relevant to future generations without alienating who's been the root cause or the root reason for success behind this gala. So for example, one very major change, but incremental but significant change that we made this year was taking our silent auction digital. So everybody at the event could bid on the silent auction directly from their table with this tablet. So you click on this silent auction button right there, and so you can see that was table 29's table. And it was on the screen. So there's a scrolling leaderboard, and I feel like I'm promoting for this company, but it's a scrolling leaderboard, and then as soon as you bid, your name would flash up on the screen. Aarti Sethi just bid $1,000 on the Las Vegas trip. Or Anonymous just bid $1,000 on this Vegas trip. So now you have your name on screen, so there's an ego thing. You're encouraging healthy competition, and it's exciting. Now you don't have to get up in the middle of the program to go check on your silent auction item. You can do it right from here, right from your table during dinner while you're eating. So this was incredibly successful for us. We saw a major increase in our silent auction revenue. And then we obviously had more items this year as well, and we changed the layout of the silent auction and did it in a separate room. So instead of congesting the cocktail reception even more, I made a whole separate shopping venue, and we put a champagne bar in there and made it like a lounge type of atmosphere, and it was very exciting. Guests loved it. And then we made a variety of different ranges of items too. So you had everything from a low ticket weekend to a priceless experience where you could, have a pickup basketball game with an Orlando Magic player. And I bet you whoever bought this jersey was wishing they bought this jersey, but that's neither here nor there.
And also to remember that the fundraising doesn't stop when the event is over.
Absolutely.
So we had dinner in Dubai that was done at a higher range, but we then launched a crowdfunding online campaign. So at that dinner, we announced, this is the site. If you'd like to give more money, or for the people that weren't able to attend the dinner, they could go to the site. There was an interactive video. There were stats, very visual, because we're a very, very, very visual generation. And so we raised actually $126,000 from just the crowdfunding campaign. And that's above, the dinner donations that we were able to give, and we were able to build 3 tents in Lebanon for Syrian refugee children.
Not all of us have a global audience, but how exciting to be able to say you don't have to be in the room to bid on the auction. Let's go online with it. I'm going to turn it over to Sam in a moment to share some examples of hers. And I'm coming to you. I want examples of what's worked, what you've tried, what didn't work, and picking up on something Sam's going to talk to you about in just a moment. Caution, language. Next generation talks differently than you might want your corporate CEO to hear. How many of you have been involved in fuck cancer? We're going to talk more about renaming our events in some more colorful ways. Sam?
My professor just swore. Leadership teams. I have a few quick slides just to give you a formula that's worked for me, and I'd hope that it would work for you as well. Leadership teams. Stack your leadership with young professionals, empower them, give them roles, and have a staff lead from within the organization, cultivating relationships with them and making them feel like this is their event. These people are the key to your ticket sales. At the very minimum, bring them on board as your ticket selling team. Aligning with mainstream. I'm not asking you to create the next ice bucket challenge or feed the deed initiative, but if something's currently going on, bring that into your organization and adopt with it so that you can look like you're trending and current. We talked about spaces a little bit. Unconventional spaces, I never spend a dime on venues. It's my rule. You take a room, you take a loft gallery, add some floor lighting, some balloons, it's a masterpiece. Align with mainstream. And let local do the work for you. Cool companies, TELUS, Bell, Shopify, they all have amazing spaces in their offices. Call them, say, do me a favor, give me your office for free, I'll bring in a cleaning crew, and align your cool dinner party, which was, for me, it was a Shabbat dinner, it's a Friday night dinner party, at their offices. So not only do you have their entire staff interested, you also have your own organization thinking, ooh, cool. All right, natural appeal. I went into Ottawa, I had not a single email in my database. What did I do? I got on board with F Cancer to gain 650 new contacts. This was trending. I knew this would attract new clientele for my organization, so I said, listen, give me your listserv, I'll do all the work for you, because at the time, I just needed names and numbers and emails. Diversification. Like I said before, stack your leadership teams with the right amount of people to sell tickets, but also make sure that they're diverse, because if you just have one little person from your organization, they're not going to recruit their friends, and your outreach will be small. That's it.
I want to ask about the food. We had lots of galas with rubber chicken. I don't think that's what you want. What are we going to start serving?
So I can speak for myself. If there's food, I serve it. Whether it means sushi in the cocktail reception, to a pasta bar in the cocktail reception, to traditional Indian appetizers in the cocktail reception, it's all there. This is one particular gala, so it's a very, high-end event, high-ticket event, and that's not possible everywhere. But keep things broad. Keep your try to serve as many people as you can. Think about your audience. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be exciting.
And you can have options where we're able to walk around to get our food. We don't have to be served at the table. So you can choose from, not a buffet, but like different fun, interactive booths, set up food stations. Friday Night Live does it, the Rom Prom for their youth gala does it, and it's so much more fun than just sitting at a table. But if you are sitting at a table, make sure that the food is diverse and that there is options, and it's not your typical chicken or fish dish.
An amazing trick. You have tons of emerging foodies and tons of cool chefs. Ask their restaurants to do a pop-up station at your venue or at your event. It's awesome. These chefs want to even sometimes donate the full amount. And sit-down dinners. People want to be in and out 2 hours, at least for next gen. They want to come after work Thursday night, open bar, pop-up stations, in, out, kaput.
And there's more and more vegetarians, and if you're diverse, you might have people who need halal food, kosher food, people who are seafood-wise and want to make sure that the fish you serve is all appropriate. So the easiest solution?
Gluten-free, vegan, non-dairy appetizers.
And if people absolutely have to have meat, you can give them a special ticket and they can get the meat as a separate. But the default is vegan, gluten-free.
And to gauge your audience, always on your ticket sales or on your website, Eventbrite or whatever you're using, ask what preference they prefer. It works really well. Vegan, veg, and then you can know your numbers and know how much catering you need.
And maybe a little spicier?
And spicy.
I think you also have to look at what's trendy. What's one of the trendiest things out there right now?
Donuts.
Food trucks. Food trucks. So, and what is the appeal to a food truck? It's you can go get a small portion of food, try it, fantastic, then try something else. Mm-hmm. So we're moving away from the sit-down gala dinner to maybe the cocktail reception with food stations. Mm-hmm. We're moving away from the sit-down entertainment, dry, 3 hours, okay, then I get to mingle a little bit and go home, to maybe a show. Mm-hmm. Look at who your market is, and that's who we're speaking to.
And donuts aren't just for dessert anymore. The donut can be made with croissant dough and be stuffed with
anything,
and become an interesting main course.
I'm still trying to figure out what a cronut is.
And a cool way to do that, let's say you have a gala and you invite the parents, those are your typical attendees. Say, let's do a $50 ticket for your children, and you do a children, or better name, but a young leadership professional reception in a separate room just off to the side. So yes, they might want to go into the top dinner's reception with their parents, but it's a really interesting way to engage this demographic through the people you already have in your database.
I'm coming back to the floor. I'm looking for examples of what you've seen people do, even if you didn't do it, what you have done, whether it worked or didn't work, and what you want to eat. Lunch is coming. I can't change the menu, but what should we be serving?
So I've been to the Canadian Cancer Society October Feast for the past 2 years. It's a food truck event. It's very trendy for our next generation kids. We love those food truck events. They charged $30 to get in, and you still had to pay for your food once you got in, but it was fine because I knew the money was going to a good cause. On top of that, you could buy a VIP package, which got you, because it was an indoor-outdoor event, VIP package got you early access to the event. You had access to a fire pit for some warmth because it was cold outside. This year it was torrential rains. And there was a bit of a concert going on. So it was a really fun event for my age group, I found. And yeah, there was, I think, other purchases, cause-related marketing happening. So it's another revenue stream. And I think they also got some proceeds from the sales of the food.
Just like going to a club. There's an admission price to get in the door, but then if you want bottle service, it's $1,000 for a bottle of vodka, but you feel so special, and maybe we need to have a Cristal Lounge at our next event with some hip-hop. Who else wants to share?
Sounds good.
Come on, I want to hear your stories.
Totally unrelated to charity, but what we're talking about here, I've noticed that a lot at weddings I'm going to. That they're just cocktail parties. I'm getting married next year, and that's exactly what we're doing. It's cocktail food stations everywhere. There's a 4-minute ceremony, like a 4-minute CEO speech, and that's it, and just keep partying. And my friends are all older.
So from charity to weddings to the bar?
The Library Foundation has launched a new collection group recently, and so we've had 2 events now in the library, and that was the first time, a Hush Hush event at the Bloor Gladstone Library, and the past one they had a theme of prohibition, so contrary to the vodka bar, there was a little secret bar, and you could go in there and give a secret and get a bagged drink. And there's,
That's
food stations, lobster and donuts, and DJs.
That was one dish, lobster and donuts.
Probably. and lots of Instagram contests. And
Super cool. Speakeasies. Who's been to a speakeasy in Toronto? 50 people, exclusive, hidden door, an amazing spot to host an event.
Okay, so I actually have a question. We all know events cost a lot of money, and so a lot of people don't do a lot of events in terms of, their base donors and fundraising. So is it sustainable if you're gearing it towards a generation that we're saying isn't going to give a lot of money?
So my events, $0.
And how do you do that?
Young leadership board members and volunteers, they ask for sponsorship from their local Starbucks and lawyers and accounting companies. I get spaces that are for free. I charge $20 max, okay? You want to get people in the door, and it breaks even. You're not going to raise money from these events, but you also shouldn't lose. It's all about connections, and you need those connections through your next-gen leadership.
And I think another, just to add on to that, there's another area which we haven't touched on yet, and that's your third party. So if you don't have necessarily the budget to host an event yourself, get a committee together and start a third-party event. You have your connections, you have your database to touch from, you have your existing sponsors where you can help make those asks, help get those connections, help get those venues. But the event is run as a third party and it doesn't run through your expense line.
And that's the best example. Get your top donors or just a regular donor who lives in a nice house to host a cocktail. It will cost you nothing. Bridal path homes are a bit more conducive.
One of the things we did in Sudbury, we have a taste event, and this is where all of the restaurants are invited to come in and set up a vendor station. It's based on a street, an old street in the Sudbury market. And so people are able to just kind of graze all night, and it's a different variety of foods and drinks. Everything is included in the ticket, the price of the ticket, and we do the 3-level ticket that Ken had suggested years ago. And one of the things that I found was really good is that we actually set up the cause. So we were raising money for the high-tech equipment in the simulation labs, and we had the big mannequins there, so people could play. So we found that there was a lot of interest in that too, just seeing where the money was going and being able to experience.
One of the great things about having multiple restaurants involved is if you ask one restaurant to give all the food, that's a pretty big commitment for them. But if one provides the soup and another one is the salad and there's a few other little mains, each can contribute, and it's in a much more competitive and involving way, so it's a great experience for them.
Sorry, so the lovely lady in blue, you asked, how do you make money? So if you just refer to the screen here, I spent a year cultivating relationships, giving. And then a year after I gave them 6, 7, 8, 9 event opportunities, I asked. And what did they say? Of course, because I gave them so much already. They couldn't say no. And who asked them? Their peers. Not an older person, not a board member, their friends. So I created a canvassing team made up of young professionals fundraising from other young professionals.
So the measure of the success of an event is not how much money did we make tonight. It's how much did we improve the relationship so that within 6 months, a year, 5 years, they become much more committed donors. The little item that Mary Lou mentioned about 3 levels of tickets, and Sam, I'm going to disagree with you about maximum $20 tickets. Great, let's have a $20 ticket. But let's also offer a $50 ticket for the gold tables for those who want to pay at that level. And it's amazing how many people like the prestige of getting into the fire pit area, of paying a little bit more, getting a little recognition. We still want to make it accessible for everybody, but when we've done this in a number of small communities, it's doubled and tripled the amount of revenue because some people cannot be seen to be paying less than the best.
However, VIP is also a deterrent for Next Gen. You don't feel good when half your friends are in the green room and you're in the yellow room, even though it's not called VIP. It's not inclusive. If you want to do an event with levels, then you need to honor those levels above and beyond. But if you want to bring everyone in a room and make it diverse and inclusive, I don't recommend having separate levels for sponsorship or ticket sales.
Now, sometimes we're stuck with one event where mom and dad and the kids are coming, and what can we do to make the event last through the whole evening? I've certainly been to restaurants where at 10 p.m. the music gets cranked up, the geezers get kicked out, and the party just begins starting. I pass people in the subway. I'm on my way home, and they're saying, it's a little early, but we'll get there for the 11 o'clock start of the party. What can we do at multi-generational events?
I think the key to remember is that if you have 1,000 people in your room, you're not going to please all of them. And I think that that's okay. And I think it's okay to let ourselves believe that that's okay. It's hard, for me it's very difficult, but it's something that I have to accept and I have to know. But I think making small but incremental changes is how you're going to please as many people as you can, or at least have something for everyone. So you have a variety of different food in your menu. You have maybe different types of entertainment. Maybe you have a very loud, obnoxious but fabulous entertainer later, and you have something more exciting but a little more tame for earlier in the evening. And I think that that's okay. Knowing your demographic is your biggest key or your biggest indicator as to what you're going to do at your event. And speaking, opening a dialogue. Have surveys after the event is done. Speak to people. Have conversations. Pick up the phone, not only to send a thank you or a fulfillment package to your sponsor after you're done, pick up the phone and call them. They'll tell you exactly what they liked and didn't like. When people buy the tickets, find out if they've ever been to the event before. When they're going to buy the ticket, find out what they like, something that they've seen at another event that worked for them. And opening that conversation, whether it be a third-party event with your volunteers or your committee, or your ticket purchasers or your donors or your sponsors, that's the biggest asset you have to running a successful event or running a successful campaign.
And also, having a youth committee for a gala or an event, that's helpful for the after. The feedback. I know on the Raw and Prom gala, it's by the Young Patron Circle. All my friends were giving me the feedback. They felt comfortable. Oh, the music was good, or I didn't like this food. I like this. I didn't like that. And then it feeds back into the organization, and we actually listen to the feedback and improve it for next year, because we want those ticket buyers to come back and have an even better experience. So it's always thinking, how do we make the experience even better for the people that have come, or else you're gonna lose them if they see that their feedback hasn't been taken into account.
I think it's very important to include traditional methods of fundraising into next-gen initiatives. Last year I sent out a mailed invitation. So it reminded them like they were getting a letter at camp, or it reminded like a wedding invitation. And it makes them realize they're just as important as their top donors or their other donors. And it's mail's coming back. I'm a true believer DM's coming back. You get so bombarded with so many emails. Am I the only one who believes DM's coming back? You get. Okay.
Again, as someone who strictly works in direct marketing, mostly direct mail, it never left. No matter what people perceive, it never left. And one person's junk mail is another person's opportunity.
Amazing.
But is direct mail different for next gen? Are we doing market segmentation by age?
That is something that everyone is working to improve within the industry.
Nodding over here. Pass the mic.
So that's exactly what I would say, is that I decided to just direct mail a small 150-person next-gen pool, and it worked really well. They had this on their fridges. It had our branding on it, and it made them feel important again.
And they don't get a lot of mail, so when they do get mail, it stands out. It's unusual to get a letter at all, so paper really is remarkable.
And items like paperless post, a wonderful invitation online. Just if you're having a hard time recruiting young professionals, it's because your emails are getting lost in the sea of everyone else's emails.
And how many of us have, show of hands, how many of you have email sitting in your box that you have not opened, probably never will open, hundreds of pieces? It's a huge challenge, and email is becoming increasingly problematic, and social media doesn't solve that problem. We'll come back to social media in a moment. We're going to switch over in a second to talking about volunteers and Next Generation as staff. Last comments about money from the panel and from the audience. What are you doing? What do you want to know? What questions do you want to ask about getting money from Next Generation, short-term and long-term?
This is sort of money related, but I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you. At OCAD University every year, we host a wonderful community event that's free. So we have 25,000 people come through our doors on one night for opening night of our graduate exhibition, mostly this generation. We really struggle with collecting their information, and I just wonder if you have any tips on that.
Is it just a desk at the front of the space that you're trying to collect emails? It's, if you have iPads and you're going around to the audience, hey, do you want to type in your email, we'll send you something cool, or whatever it is, but go up to the people instead of just having a standalone, desk, and get the technology involved in that, or start with the Instagram or Twitter wall, rolling wall, make it more technology savvy and interactive.
A door prize or a raffle where they fill out a ballot. Make sure you're following the licensing regulations for your local licensing office, but absolutely fill out a ballot, win something, 100% they'll give you their information.
And they'll fill in all the details, email, Twitter, phone number, and
Yeah.
address, because otherwise they won't know that they won.
My 2 tricks, photo booths, really popular right now, and you get an automatic email so you can upload it straight to Instagram. So you get every single person because they want to be in a funny photo. My other thing is a really cool raffle or door prize or incentive. Auction off something really big, a mentorship outing with your CEO, and you'll get all their information because you'll have people circulating with iPads.
And with the photo booth, your step and repeat with your logo and email addresses in the background, they posted on Facebook because they were just at something cool and fun, so you get the social media spin-off from that. We'll talk more about social media in a minute. More about money.
I work for the Jays Care Foundation, and the last 3 years we've started a Young Professionals Committee and Network, and in the first year we actually profited about $100,000 through our Young Professionals group, so it can happen.
Other comments and questions?
Just while Ken's walking over,
the farthest corner of
if there's one thing you can do tomorrow, start a separate list in your constant contact mail list or database titled Next Gen Outreach Donors, whatever. You need to target them differently than everyone else, and that's a really good step moving forward.
Yeah, just going back to the how do you make an intergenerational event, and you're talking about that. We had a hybrid sort of sneaky way of doing this, and it's worked really well for 10 years, and it was to engage young artists, in this case young bands, and we would ask them to play this big event. But what we would ask them to play were Beatles songs. So we would have, it would be a true intergenerational event, and it was very celebratory because often it was the parents of the bands, or just people who wanted to see Beatles songs played, or just fans of the bands. And so it worked out really well. And it worked out so well that we'd have one particular donor who would match the entire thing too. But going back to the original point, actually we don't do the event anymore because there's sort of costs associated with that, and we lost that matching donor, and the board was like, you know what, this needs to make money. So we're called Aunt Leah's Place in Vancouver.
So let's move on to talking about volunteers. Now, what we heard earlier was that volunteering is not just free labor for you from Next Gen. It's a way of checking you out. It's dating before marriage. It's figuring out whether this is an organization where we want to have a relationship. So let's take a look at some of the data that we have on how Next Gen gets involved. And again, I'm going to come back to you for experiences. And I'll just take a quick show of hands right now. How many of you have had volunteer experience and it was rotten? It just we need to talk about what was rotten and how we're going to fix that. Tell us about our data.
Okay, well, similar to what I was talking about before, the next gen are really interested in networking and gaining professional experience. We have 72% of millennials are interested in participating in a nonprofit young professional group. Again, we touched on that earlier. You know, the top 3 motivations for next gen to get involved are passion, meeting people, and expertise. Also, you know, when trying to get volunteers involved, have programs designed with the next gen, not just for them. Have them design that program themselves. They know the best. They know best, you know, what works and what doesn't, and they also are very appreciative when you value their time. You know, if you can do a training session online or on a conference call instead of getting them to, you know, truck across the city and spend 2 hours of their time in a stuffy boardroom, they're not going to be as excited to volunteer for you. So try and look into online training sessions for volunteers as well and get them to design the program.
I do an event called Shot for Spots, and I bring all new people in and next geners in to go around to different stations to understand what volunteers are available at my organization. And then I do an bus tour, open bar bus tour to each of my agencies or partner organizations. So we do a tour of the city. They can read and they can speak to like the event coordinator or the volunteer coordinator who'll be working with them directly. And I find the ROI on that is quite high.
Experiences from the floor, and I think we've got slide 1 or 2 up from this one that talks to this as well. What was that rotten volunteer experience? What did they do wrong that turned you off so badly? And what are you doing to make volunteers really happy that they got involved? Thanks, Mark.
Hi. I run an agency, so it's about a client. The Scout Association, you have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts here. They were struggling to recruit volunteer staff, you know, youth leaders to run programs. And we put together a Facebook recruitment campaign. And it was based on 2 levels. One, if you want to get into youth work in the UK, you need a certain number of volunteer hours to be able to get into the profession. So we had one series of Facebook ads, basically career-oriented. If you want to be this, come and join with us because we'll help you reach that goal. But the other one that was much more successful, because we were looking for people who wanted to do outdoor pursuits, we started advertising on the Facebook pages if you were interested in kayaking, for example. And we said, you're interested in kayaking, teach children how to do it. And the campaign was supposed to run about 6 months, but I think got turned off after 2 weeks because it got too many people on board. So, you know, if you can match people with their needs, i.e., I like doing this and I can get, I can advance my career. It worked very well, and that was all aimed at people aged between 16 and 25.
That's a wonderful example. I lead an Israel mission, and we have a point system. So you recruit people, they have to apply to volunteer, they have a leadership training throughout the year, and then whoever volunteers the most through the point system gets to lead the mission to Israel. So incentive, competition, it gives people...
Other experiences with volunteers. Loved it, hated it, we're going to try it. Are you getting data about your volunteers? Do you get more than their name and address? Do you start with their birthdays and have parties for them? Do you celebrate them? Do you have volunteer job descriptions letting people know what expectations are so that they know whether they've done it right or wrong? All too often, volunteers are just brought in. The worst examples that I've seen where it was completely make work and people were stuffing envelopes, and in the back room somebody else was unstuffing the envelopes just because they were there. We had to keep them busy. We need to make sure that the work is meaningful, and as we heard earlier, they're looking for skills that will help them in the workplace, or at least an opportunity to meet their significant other. Several communities now have volunteer date nights. Where it's specifically to get together on the assumption that I wouldn't probably want to have a long-term relationship with the kind of people who hang around bars. I'm not an online dating kind of person. I love getting involved in causes. Let me go and have a singles night for the zoo, a single night for the arts, because other people who care about the arts or care about Iranian culture, they're more likely to be my soulmate. And let's bring them out specifically as a singles night.
I'm just interested how many organizations actually ask for feedback from their volunteers about their experience.
Great.
A handful of hands going up, and clearly that's one of the simplest next steps, to have a quick form that they can fill in, check some boxes, maybe even giving you anonymous feedback if they're afraid that you'll be mad at them for telling you the ugly truth.
Exactly, and I think every organization needs that. It also lets the volunteer know that they're of value, like they feel valued, that past their volunteer time, that you're really taking into account how the experience was for them. And they might come back, hopefully.
How many people also have a clear strategy to communicate with their volunteers between events or between times of the year where this particular volunteer may come back?
No hands going up. And
that could be another volunteer constant contact list just for volunteers.
You have to keep them engaged between the events that you need them at.
One of the perks of being a volunteer is that you get into that exclusive club where you get information that other people don't necessarily get. And you hear what the results of your volunteering were. Donors, we know, want to hear whether their money was wisely spent. Volunteers are donors of time, and they want to know whether their time achieved something amazing. Not that we raised $100,000 at the event, that's great, but that $100,000 got Syrian kids into a refugee camp, and here's some photos for you from Syria.
Yeah, like even if a volunteer is tutoring a student for an hour, show them how the stats on increased college rates, how that 1 hour of their time is directly impacting someone's future. It's huge for the volunteer.
I would say 2 immediate takeaways. 1, these volunteers are your street cred. They are your biggest advocates for your organization. Treat them like gold. My second one is always do a thank you event for volunteers. It can be in your space. It doesn't really matter. Do one next month. Do a Hanukkah, Christmas, Christmas gift exchange, $5. Do something fun. Bring them all in the room because they want to meet each other.
We had a relationship with a local theater production place, and I mean, you hear there's so many of them. They often have seat tickets that they know they need to fill and they want to fill, and they will give us 50 the week before, and that's where we sent them email out to all our volunteers. And said,
that's really good.
That's perfect. That's the perfect example.
One of the longest Twitter exchanges I've had recently was under the hashtag charity beer. And we started talking about breweries that in some cases were brewing, one particular brewery, the entire brewery is set up as social enterprise. All the profits are given away to charity. But many other breweries that were delighted to say, sure, we'll provide some product. We want to attract people who care about the world. Number one cause that breweries were interested in? Guess? And driving? No, that actually didn't show up on a single brewery's list. That's a little water. What's the major ingredient in beer? Water. They love clean water campaigns. So environmentalists hook up with the breweries, see if we can do a charity beer night, whether it's a party that you organize or on the 25th, every beer from this company that's bought at any bar in the city will help provide clean water for everybody in the community or a community halfway around the world. Beer is definitely a great opportunity. Thank you for sharing that.
Ken brings up a wonderful point. Prospect research. Where do you even start? 2 takeaways. I would say 1, take some moles or staff or volunteer recruitments in NextGen and go to some current young professional events. Hot Docs, if you're a film organization, go to maybe the Hot Docs Young Adult Night. If you're an arts place, maybe ROM, Jewish, just call me, send you anywhere you want to go. Send someone in there to get a vibe and start talking to people. You never know who you might meet, and that person might be looking for a volunteer opportunity. Give them your card and follow up. And that might be where you start your next gen leadership. Another really cool place, CSI, Center for Social Innovation. Have you heard of it? Next gen startups love these communal workspace organizations, and it's a really good place. They host paper bag lunches and cool talks. Really good place to prospect research for leadership.
And I think don't underestimate any one of your demographic levels, including volunteers. You may have a 14-year-old, 15-year-old just coming out to get their volunteer hours, and that's all fine and well, sign a paper, and they're on their merry way. But that's a huge opportunity 10 years from now. That's a huge opportunity 20 years from now. And I think starting the conversation now, when they're just beginning to realize what charities, what different organizations are about, when they're still learning what they like and what they don't like or what they resonate with, now's the time to open that dialogue. And any type of minor appreciation that you could do to make them remember you, that's what you'd want to do.
I'll come back to appreciation in a moment because I want to talk about certificates are dead, what's coming next. But if you're in Ontario and you want high school students to help you out, go to the website getyourhours.ca, which has been set up specifically to match up charities that need youth and youth volunteers that need charities. Interestingly enough, the organization that set that up came to Humber web development students and said, you create this website, you need to do this as part of your college experience, and they did a brilliant job. And again, the cost was next to nothing. So use college students. This is my plug. Humber fundraising students do internships. Humber international development students do internships. And of course, it's not just Humber. Make use of the connections through both the high school, college, and university programs. But shall I just run off another certificate from a Microsoft template, slap it in the frame, and give it to you to say, thank you for volunteering? No.
My number one rule, I write a handwritten card to every single volunteer that comes to my event, and I hand it to them that evening.
That's so old-fashioned, handwritten cards.
It works. They appreciate it. You do a little PS with an inside joke. I get my chair or co-chairs to maybe even sign the letter. It really does work, and they put it on, I don't know, their clipboard or their fridge at home, and it resonates with them. I'll brand maybe the thank you note, or sometimes I'll just go to Target and buy cool thank you notes. You don't always have to have a hidden agenda.
I also always have a little thank you gift, whether it's sponsored. It's an amazing sponsorship opportunity for someone to get the word out to, 50 or 60 volunteers, depending on the size of your event. And also, I in addition to thanking them the night of and signing whatever I need to sign and certificate, I also, about a month later, will send a thank you letter. Mail is so underrated. And now in the days of email and all of that, whenever you get them, like for me, I dread getting mail because usually it's a bill. If I open a piece of mail that has somebody saying thank you, that doesn't happen often enough. And sometimes that's all it takes. And they'll keep it.
And they're spending 5 more minutes writing a handwritten note than an email. It just shows that you're valuing them again.
Absolutely.
And even for follow-up on top of that, I'll invite them to our next reception at free of charge, or that's an amazing thing you brought up. Gifts in kind, and a next-gen person could get it for you to find the committee gift. And it could be a $10 Starbucks card. But you never know, your little mom and pop shop right beside you will give you 20 of something. It works really well.
It was mentioned before, but we need to come back to this. Having a youth board, whether it's a group on its own, a youth council, or seats on the official board of directors, board of trustees, board of governors, you wouldn't support a women's organization that had nothing but men on the board. You wouldn't believe that a diversity organization actually cared about diversity if the board was all male, pale, and stale. You can't believe that this organization cares about young people if the board is all old and bald. We need, no offense to the bald, we need to make sure that we are including people, otherwise why would they trust us? It's a crucial step. So how many people here have a youth council of some sort in your organization? Clearly a relatively easy next step to do. You don't even necessarily immediately need to give them power. They can be a task force that comes in and gives you advice. There's an old saying in fundraising, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. Bring in young people from a variety of different backgrounds and give them the opportunity to tell you much more than we've done here. All right, I made
I'm
a
really
ball
curious.
joke.
Sorry,
I'm in trouble now.
No, I won't call you on that. I just have a question for the panel, just about engagement. I work at Ryerson University, and so I wanted to ask you. We have a sort of an unwritten policy not to approach students in early grads, but clearly that's a significant portion of the time that you are in that period of your life, and it's a reaction that came because of it's a policy that became because of reaction. I just graduated. I've got tons of debt. How can you dare ask me for a donation? So I wondered about your experiences with your alma maters, with where you came from, and how good they are at getting you involved with them and that kind of thing.
I think you hit the nail on the head. With my university, I kind of resented them coming at the end when I'm graduating because they didn't engage with me during university. So it almost seemed like they just saw me as a cash donation opportunity at the end. Well, how about during my 4 years? Why wasn't I engaged throughout that process? I would have been much more open to donating or to learning more about where the money goes, how the Alumni Association works when I was a student. Once they're graduated, they're not engaged anymore and they're on to the next thing. So I think that's too late at that point.
It was amazing. I got a new job 4 months ago, and Humber fundraising department sent me a pen saying congratulations on your new job.
And if you have a baby, Humber will send you a onesie that says "Future Humber Grad." We have housewarming gifts so that we engage. We want to know when you get a new job. The alumni department's doing a great job.
So I would recommend a 3-year sort of probation period with just cultivation and stewardship items, such as little gifts like that. After 3 years, as long as a person, and you've been tracking them and following them, has a solid career, I would say make a small gift. If Humber calls me tomorrow, I'll give them whatever they want. I was over the moon about my pen. I was like, who told them? I was so excited. I'm like, Professor Wyman probably did it. But
it was a pen, Sam.
I know, but it was so cute. And maybe a suggestion is getting to your professors and getting them on board to help track student progression in life. Another thing that Concordia sends me, because it's from Montreal, but they do host them in Toronto, are networking events. And of course, I was in the dance department, so I get artsy-fartsy things, or maybe business, or cool screenings. So events and items, and then make an ask once I have a job. Good.
And I think it's key to engage more than you ask, at least at the beginning. So if you're spend the first 3 years engaging with them, sending networking events, saying how are you doing, finding out what's going on, how they're progressing, by the 4th year, I think it's absolutely acceptable to ask. But
As the slide said a minute ago, give, ask.
And that's exactly it. So if it's another way for grads as well to continue to engage with their fellow classmates who maybe they might have lost track of otherwise, or you keep maybe your roommates are your friends, but you don't necessarily keep in touch with people from your faculty or people that you may have had a class with in 2nd year. And this is a fantastic way for both the university or the organization to benefit and for the students to benefit.
And where do you start? A lot of alumni or programs have Facebook groups.
Yeah.
So I would go there, speak to whoever sort of runs a group and say, I want to host an event all on us. Let's just bring back alumni. Or do like maybe a young mom and tot specific program. Like target each demographic or stage of life so that there's a reason for them to be there. Who wouldn't love all the 2-year-olds running around and getting pens and onesies?
And I think this brings up another point where we bring back to our third party, and Leen touched on it as well, when you're engaging with them while they're still in school. This is also, it's the same concept as with starting a third party or a committee, where maybe you can't put a next generation person, maybe you don't have control as to who's on the board, but you can start a task force. You can start a committee of advisors or a particular project where they're starting an event or a campaign speaking to their own demographic. They're going to engage their friends in automatically. You're going to, if you start talking to them while they're still in school, they're going to and continue to speak with them while they graduate, after they graduate, you're also speaking to their friends just by proxy. So opening that dialogue and valuing their importance and letting them know how much you value them.
The current Humber students are just doing some research on, among other things, the undergrad to donor experience. If you'd like copies of the research on that and a wide variety of other topics, give me your card, write a little note on it, or scratch out a piece of paper, or email me, or tweet me, and we'll be happy to send you more information on that research. We're coming close to the end of our session, so let's move on to the staff situation. Next Gen as staff. Are we looking at the future where all of our offices have to be Google offices with playrooms and beer fridges?
Yeah, sure.
Or can we continue to be soul-crushing nonprofit organizations?
First of all, who has a Next Gen division or department? Staff, paid staff member. Are they under 30? Cool. Okay.
Pretty basic. I'm not the person to run your Next Gen office.
Why I ask is I fully respect every age category in the room, but if you really want to engage Next Geners, you need to have someone living, breathing their vibe, their culture. I couldn't do my job if I had 3 kids at home. Every night I'm out, networking, schmoozing, going to different events. You need someone on the ground, and the more on the ground, the more successful you'll be.
Other tips on staffing. Monday morning breakfast for the staff. 2 nods and I don't know. Friday night, let's all go out for a beer.
I think we're at the point, and speaking as a Next Gener, I think we're at the point where we're trying to figure out, in addition, or granted we want to excel in our careers, we're willing to put in as much as time, effort, whatever it takes to progress and get that promotion and move forward. We're also trying to figure out work-life balance. My Friday nights are mine. My Saturday nights are mine. If I want to have a Christmas party, do I want to go at 6 o'clock to Timbuktu to sit there for 3 hours and then drive home? I don't want to do that. Maybe give me my Friday afternoon and say, go. Formal recognition policies, less red tape. Letting me know that I have that you value my opinion, you trust my judgment, and I have the freedom to use my creativity. Creativity is a big one. If I feel stifled, I'm not going to be productive. And also that I have the freedom to make my own decisions. Not to say I wouldn't run it by you or my superior, but that I have the freedom to use my judgment and to come to you with a recommendation that I believe you're going to listen to.
A couple takeaways. A really good way to engage your board members is pair them up with a mentor of your young leadership staff or a young leadership volunteer. So you had this relationship of your board members getting involved with your young leadership staff. Another really thing I loved at my old job was 4 times a year I met with the CEO. It could be just to have a cup of coffee, but I felt empowered by that, and I really valued the relationship. I wouldn't say we need a Google culture. Your culture of your office needs to be adapted by anyone from 18 to 65. It's not just a Next Gen thing. If you're going to do like TGIFs and have a beer at the end of the day, and do it for everyone. Just don't do it on your own time. Don't make us come in after work.
I'm the only one in my office and in the Next Gen age group, I suppose. Yay, me. I was just wanting to talk about sort of how traditional offices are compared to what some of us new gens expect, which is we're used to in university or college or whatever, working in coffee shops, working in alternative spaces like the CSI. So allowing your staff members, especially when they're in a creative position, writing different appeals, you know, coming up with strategies, allowing them the flexibility to work from where it works for them. If you trap me in my office for 7 hours a day, well, 8, I'm not as effective as if I can go to a coffee shop and work there for 2 hours and break up my day. So I think really respecting how we all need to work, you know, differently, and trusting your staff, and knowing that hours spent at a desk does not correlate directly with output and productivity. So you can't just say, like, you know, if you stay here this many hours, you're going to be this productive. We have amazing HR policies at my organization where we can bank up time and take a slider day, like a day off, and it's amazing. But the way that it's put into place is sort of robotic. It's like you have to add like a half an hour for the 2 weeks before, and it has to be the same amount added every day. It's like if I worked on the line at Ford, that would make sense because I would be making, you know, that many more car parts in that half an hour period. But if I'm burning out one day and sitting, I can push paper for half an hour. But other days I'm fully engaged and I'll stay an extra 2 hours because, you know, I'm just getting stuff done in a really effective way. So I think having respect for your staff and different ways of working and learning is important.
So I can say a couple things to that. So I'm a 2-person shop and I manage my program coordinator. I meet with her once a week. I tell her, I don't care if I see you or not throughout the week, just make sure your work's done. And we don't have a landline. We only use our cell phones, and that's our main form of, like, that's the way to contact us. And so those are a couple of things that I practice, and it seems to work really well.
Let's use our last few minutes to switch over to social media and new technology. What do we need to do so that we are connecting with people all the way around? There it is. More than 60% of respondents wanted shared stories about successful projects. We need to communicate and let them know what the good news was. 75% like, retweet, or share content on social media. Let's make it easy, but more than that, send out a message that says, please retweet, please share, please like, or every like will equal a donation, so that we activate the Slacktivists and give them some rewards for doing that. 51% of millennials are connecting via social media, 46% of them donated to the cause via social media, and 46% are reading a blog post. We heard earlier about blogs. We've talked for years about websites 3.0. It's no longer just what we put up that we want them to see. It's got to be interactive. They have a voice, and they want that voice to be reflected in the social media. You can't not be on Twitter. The only question is whether you're taking an active part in Twitter. You're being tweeted about. You can't not be on Facebook. You can't not be on Instagram. Everything that you do is being covered in social media. And most importantly, get out that camera. Even if it's a selfie saying, here's where I am today, millennials want visuals. They want graphics, infographics. They want to have communication that is more than words, but when it's words, not too many of them. So we want to make it easy. Back to the panel.
Selfies are passe. I'm just going to put that out there. They're done. Drop them, throw them out.
I beg to differ. I quite enjoy
I don't
There's
think
nothing
so.
like a good selfie. I think that we have to remember that we're getting into a generation that will never have lived in a world without Facebook. It's mind-blowing when you think about that. But it's true. People don't take pictures unless it's something that they can post. What's the point of taking it otherwise? Or they will take a picture specifically so they can post it. And I think Facebook has allowed us magnificent tools to reach our specific demographic. And it can cost you close to nothing, or it can cost you as much as you want to put into it. And I think we have to remember that, like we touched on earlier, this is their mother tongue. This is the first language people are learning now is social media, at least first written communication that they're learning. So I think speaking to them in that language and engaging with them in something you know 100% they're going to be involved with is key. And I think that we have to remember, and it's again something we touched on earlier, we may not be trying to find an immediate ROI. We may not be looking for immediate return on investment or looking for Facebook or social media or Twitter as a revenue stream, but we're starting a dialogue and we're engaging with who are going to be our future donors.
And I know personally, like I connect with organizations first through Twitter and Instagram and Facebook before going to their site. So you have to make sure that you're having engaging conversations on those social platforms. And then when I do go to that site, the less text, the better. I see too much text on a website and I just get turned off. You want to keep them interested and enticed. So make sure that you're, I mean, it seems so obvious, but keep your website updated. If it's not updated, I'm walking away, I'm thinking, oh, maybe the organization doesn't exist anymore. Keep the calendar of events up there clearly, success stories, interactive statistics. Make it clear on your site on how to get involved. So again, less text, the better. Keep it very simple and very visual.
My formula, I outsource Twitter, Insta, Facebook, and Blogger. I have an intern. She does it for 20 minutes a day, and she pre-schedules all the content on Hootsuite. We go through it together, and she runs my conversations. She knows the language and vibe of the organization, and it works really, really well.
And Facebook is getting old. Yep. Twitter isn't really the generation's first choice. First choice is?
YouTube.
And Instagram.
Because it's visual.
So you've got to be very visual. If you don't have Instagram accounts for your organization, you set them up, and increasingly Pinterest accounts.
Oh, yeah.
So that we can do that positive, upbeat, good news, very visual Pinterest pages.
And for tweets, I think tweets are still effective. Add a picture. I think there's something like 75% of tweets that have a picture are retweeted.
Check out the skim.com. It's a daily blog sent out of like top highlights for the world and community so that you sound smart at your coffee meetings. But they do it brilliantly. And that's what we want to see from the organizations. Snippets, cool captions, fun photos, and community events. I always post that there is a cool dinner party put on by one of my other Jewish partners in the city. You're a source for communicating, for spreading information. You're not just selfish. Please don't be selfish.
Could I just add one point on social media?
Absolutely.
Shall I shout or do you want to?
I'm going to pass the mic over.
Christian.
We run a website called Leen with Care, which is the UK equivalent of Kiva. It attracts a lot of under 40s, and in terms of young millennial supporters who want to have more engagement. And we've just done some big analysis of where they've come from. We got somewhere between 3 and 4% of all sign-ups from social media, 15% word of mouth. So don't forget those old school techniques of talking to friends rather than just RTing are enormously powerful if you give them something they want to talk about. So don't forget that people still actually talk to each other as well. Thank you. It's called lendwithcare.co.uk. It's the equivalent, or is it com? I can't remember. We built it ages ago. Search for Leen with Care. And it's the UK equivalent of Kiva, and it's run by Care it's a Care International product, but just Care International UK. And have a look. And if anyone wants to see how people come on board, I'd be more than happy to share, because it's very interesting. 15% by vouchers. And they give those vouchers to friends. And so 30% is about real contact amongst friends rather than just RTing. So don't forget that as well.
And where do you start tomorrow? Create a hashtag handle for your organization. It's simple as that. You don't need to be a master in social media. You just need to start somewhere. And we don't want to overwhelm you, but just one tweet a day, schedule them out every day, do hashtag AFP Congress learnings, I don't know, something cool related to your organization, and see what comes back.
And also with the holiday season coming up, I know I don't like to spend money on material gifts, but I really like to give a donation to an organization, and then that person gets a nice email, $20 has been given in your honor, this is where it's going to go. So make sure that your platforms can accommodate that and have that. It's so effective. I know a lot of my friends are increasingly turning to that.
That's the best. Tribute cards. Yeah. Brand it with your organization. Say, on behalf of us, we've made a small donation to wish you a happy holidays, signed by your staff. Ugh, do it tomorrow.
And they're even doing it now. I'm seeing it increasingly in weddings as well. It's in lieu of party favors, a donation has been made to Sick Kids Hospital. Wow, better than that salt and pepper shaker I get and I'm never going to use. So
hashtag tribute cards. Yeah. Let's go.
It's time to wrap it up. We need to get you upstairs for awards. Please take out your phones and take photos of the panel so that you can prove to the people you work for that's not the person who signs the check, it's the donors, that you have been busy doing good things today, and then tweet it out with a hashtag so that you can show them that you are about to become as connected to the next generation as you possibly can. Big thanks to our panel, Sam, Aarti, Leen. Thank you.